great, and you come in 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, well, we want to have a helicopter. You know, I mean, that's almost a no-go from the start, just because there's not enough time at that point. So, you know, the wilder your ideas, give them to us the earliest, so that we have time to digest it, ask you about it. The more smaller things, oh, we're going to have, you know, 7 food trucks instead of 3 food trucks or something like that. That's pretty easy stuff. That's not a big deal. And we will ask you for a map, but we don't need to know exactly where each vendor's going to be.
Till the end.
Till the end.
Final. At the end.
The fire chief needs to know that you're meeting all the fire codes, and they're rigorous. So, but you have some experts here that can help you walk through those, along with the fire chief and the assistant.
And does anybody have any questions for Julie? We're about to kind of our point where we're going to wrap up, and we can answer some more detailed ones after this. But
so this is mostly applying to things that are happening on city property within the city of Ithaca?
Correct.
How, maybe you can't speak to this, but how does that shift if it's like not, you know, within Tompkins County but not, you know, in the city of Ithaca, or on private land, not on public land?
so a lot of times you're going to end up at your town board, or you'll end up at, there's a building department for the town outside, or like in Newfield for you. Like, I'm gonna put up a big party that's gonna go for 3 days straight. It's gonna have lots of tents, tables. It's essentially like what you would see as a wedding. To be able to put that up, I need to go and apply for a building permit at least 2 months out for the town. And I have to get the ground UFPO'd, so a New York State surveyor to come in and tell me where all the lines are, where I can put that. I have to get another electrical permit to be able to run electric from the structure I have to light the tent. So not all of these things are going to apply to you specifically, especially if you're on private property versus public property. But even on private property, if you have an assembly of over 50 people, that may require you to have certain amenities involved. And also just taking a look at facilities. I mean, you'll know from how many people you've had at the venue what types of things you need and how those work together. But like, if I have a generator, I have a tent, and I have a food vendor, what that food vendor is using to cook changes where all of those things can go in relation to each other. And then, on top of that, what type of structures I have to order from the rental company for what the material, what the tents are made out of, and if they have sides, if there's lit exit signs. There's a lot of things that work together depending on how you change the structure of that plan. And so that'll change what types of permits you need. The best thing to do is to call. Like, call your town office and say, I'm thinking of doing this, this, and this. Do any of these things require a permit? And they will immediately, like,
Especially amplified sound. That'll be a big one, probably that's universal too.
Right, amplified sound. And so in some type of performances, pyrotechnics require a different type of permit. And so there are a lot of things to look at, because pyrotechnics is a really interesting one. And some things that are health code related are state level, and some are county level. And some of those contradict within. So you have to know what inspector you're getting at your event, when, to know what to show them. And so it's reading, so the permits tell you everything you have to get for security, so how much security you need to buy into your event to keep it secure, how many police officers you have to have at your event, how many ambulances and paramedics you have to have at your event. Even if it's small, your permit will tell you, okay, you need to have this, this, and this. So reading the fine print. If you're making deep fried Oreos and it's not 5 feet away from your tent and it catches on fire, and it was also too close to a building and that catches on fire, you have to deal with 3 city agencies and 3 different sets of reports, and that looks very poor for your future. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen, and there are accidents, but if you're not following the guidelines that you sign off of and have an inspector come and say you move something after the inspector comes, that's on you. That's your liability insurance. Good event insurance is really expensive, and getting event insurance after you have to make all of those reports and they're documented is very difficult.
And making sure that your vendors all have the permits that they need. Food vendors have to have, if they're using propane, they have to have propane permits, at least in the city.
This was the scary talk.
Yeah.
Read the stuff on your permits, it's very important.
It's important, because when the fire department sends personnel around and they find vendors who don't have propane permits, back in the day when we had time, we might stop and try to issue one right on the spot, but more likely than not anymore, they're gonna say, sorry, you have to pack up and go. And if you have to pack up and go, and there's already 800 people, you know, milling around,
Getting a
and
car
you have to
in,
get a
yeah.
vehicle on and get them packed up and out.
But also, your
more
vendor
hassle for
income.
you.
At that point, you have to spend half an hour of when you're supposed to be coordinating your event, haggling with that vendor to get their booth fee back. Because they're not gonna leave without their booth fee. They're gonna be a problem for the next half an hour and follow you around your festival. And you're not gonna be able to get anything done. And so, making sure, cross your Ts and dot your Is. Any other questions for Julie?
Does the food truck have to be, or are they already?
So some food trucks already have permits. I mean, in the city of Ithaca, we rely on the event organizer to be in charge of all aspects of your event. So we're not going to ask for the food truck's health department certificate, but you should, and you should have it, and you should have their sales tax certificate and all of that, because if anything comes up, foodborne illness gets spread around and people are starting to look at the event, we're coming to you and we're going to say, hey, can we get a copy of that health department certificate? And if you don't have it, you know, then you're going to have a harder time with insurance claims and different things like that. So.
And food vendors that are temporary, it all has to do with how they permit their health permit, from whether it is a standing kitchen or whether it's a temporary kitchen they set up each event. And that specific, and you can call environmental health at the health department, and you would talk to Ann Wildman. She is the person who's currently in charge. That changes every few years, but she's the person who focuses specifically on temporary food vending situations right now in Tompkins County.
How do I know if I need any permit?
Call your municipal office wherever you're having an event, because there's a good chance that you might not in certain areas, or you may need 1 permit versus 3 permits or something like that. That's very easy to get through and all of that. But my guess is if you're having anything that has to do with amplified sound, if you're having anything that's drawing over 100 people, you know, in the city of Ithaca it's 50 people, at least you need an assembly permit. And that's basically just lets us know who you are, what you're doing, and where you're doing it. And it lets the police department know that in case there's any issues along the way.
So when you're maybe beginning to think about an event, just call the municipality and the township.
Yeah, after you go through your game plan,
Right.
and you've figured out your attendance you think you're gonna have, and before you write your full, kind of delve into it, look at your permits. Do you have the ability to fulfill all the requirements on your permit? You know?
And
Also-
you'll want to know what the municipality is going to be asking of you, because you have to translate that into dollars and cents for your budget. Because if municipality, you know, if they say, you know, yes, you can do it, but you're going to need an ambulance, and you're going to need, you're going to need, I mean, those are all costs you have to factor into your, and if you don't, and all of a sudden it comes, you know, to the end of this thing, and I got to come up with $1,000 for an ambulance, or whatever the number is.
You're done.
That's really hard.
Yeah,
Right,
I mean, you don't want to be there. You want to know that way before, as you're building your budget, not at the end, when you're
Right.
trying to.
So be more detailed, and
Right, and one of the things you can definitely do is, after we're done here, the whole purpose of having these workshops is to get you to start thinking through all the details of your event, and then talk to Gary, talk to Allison. They provide technical assistance, so you set up a meeting and you come prepared. Bring the budget you have so far, bring the event plan you have so far, and all of your questions, what you plan to implement. And they can help you and steer you towards, okay, you're gonna put a tent up that's over 400 square feet, you're gonna need a building permit here. A lot of those baseline pieces of information, they're gonna know. The other things, they can't know everything for your event, and that's on you. So it's on you to ask questions of them and come prepared so that they can see what an accurate picture looks like for you, but then also to call your municipality.
And I'll just put my plea in there, is try to be as forthright as possible. Even if even if you're thinking of something, but it's not solid yet, shoot it out there, because what we find is people tend to be really secretive about what they're doing. Well, yes, I'm having an event at Stewart Park, and I want to know, do I need any permits? Well, what are you doing? Well, we want to have a bounce house. Okay, well, how many people are you? And so we end up with this whole 50, questions game. And, depending on who you get in my office, you might get somebody who will ask you all those 50 questions and get you in the right direction. Or you might get a staff person that asks you 3 questions and leads you to one person, and you're not getting the information that you need. So be as open and honest and say, yeah, I want to have an event in Stewart Park, and it's going to be, an arts and culture festival, and we want to have a bounce house, and we're going to have talent shows, and we're expecting about 500 people, and we're doing this, and and we can help you from there. It's
Not
just,
too much detail.
there's never too much detail for us.
No. Anybody else have questions? Ready to go home?
Okay. Well, you've been here for a long time. Thank you very much. We have one more of these next week, where we're going to do a whole other set of issues. Who's